All right, we're back here. You're back here on the Gill Track and Field Connections podcast, the podcast that works to uplift and honor coaches from around the country. I've been on the West Coast for a couple of episodes here, so we're going to go over to the East Coast. Help me welcome from North Carolina, the head coach of Cuthbertson, I knew I was going to stutter, Cuthbertson Cavaliers. Help me welcome the wise, the wonderful Mr. Dustin Allen. Dustin, how are you, sir?
I am doing great, man. Hope everybody listening is having an awesome day.
Oh, man. Well, they are now because they press play. I mean, this is
That's
going to be
right.
the best part of their day. This next 5 hours here on the podcast, you're just going to really enjoy it and get to know a really great coach and great person, which I'm excited to find out more about. Dustin, it's one of those interesting things. You reached out, a while ago now, and I was like, oh yeah, you're on the list. It just takes so long to get through this. So really, what a testament to your patience to stay with me through the last couple of years. And now you're on the podcast, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Obviously, there's so many good coaches all across the country that everybody wants to be on this. We've listened to your other podcasts and listened to other people and gotten some good information. So it's awesome to be on and kind of give back as well and kind of give my story about, kind of things that have happened. So
Absolutely.
Looking forward to it.
I tell people it's kind of like Pokemon. You got to catch them all. Well, that's my ultimate goal is to have every single coach on the podcast, but I only get 52 a year. So
that's right.
That's going to make it a little tough. So we have an upcoming project. So in 2024, in April and May, this was one of my ways to get more people on the podcast, but also create some really interesting content to start conversation. We're interviewing, so be on the lookout in April and May of 2024. We're interviewing a high school coach from every state for about 15, 20 minutes. I know that's a short one for this podcast, right? Where we talk about their state qualifying process. So example, in North Carolina, how does North Carolina qualify kids to the state meet? How many classes do they have? Is it area district sectional state? Is it a descending order list, et cetera? And so we're super excited. We've got all of our candidates lined up. We're going through the interview process now. So we're going to actually drop that every day in April and May. So every day there'll be a new 15, 20 minute-ish podcast. So we'll have even more people on the podcast that way. So I'm excited for the conversation that's going to start, the empathy of how other states do things. Sometimes we think our state is either the worst state in the world or the best state in the world. And we're going to come find out that there are a lot of states who do things differently that might be right for your state. Or you might start realizing like, oh, maybe we got it pretty good in our state compared to those other guys and gals. Well, Dustin, let's start with you. Let's talk about your origin story. Somewhere along the way, assuming you were an athlete, you'll tell us here in a second, coaching had to go switch for you. It had to go from something that was done to you, Dustin, go run this, throw that, jump that, to, oh, wait a minute, like I could be a coach. Maybe that could be my career. Where does track and field coaching, where does that start for you?
Yeah, I'm a pretty unique guy. People, especially with the success that we've had, are always amazed when I say this, but I had never been to a track and field meet in my life until the first track and field meet. I was the head coach. So I played football, hold on, Dustin. Baseball.
So when you started by saying I'm really unique, and I literally in my head I was like, he does realize I've interviewed over 250 coaches. Like, there's no more unique. They're all unique. This isn't going to be that unique. Let's make sure we hear that, because we're obviously going to dig into that part of this, Dustin.
Yeah.
You had never coached a track meet until the day you were the head coach of the track team.
And it's not even just coach track. I never been to a track meet. I never been, other than like training for football. That's like the only time I've been on a track. And I played offensive line, so I didn't really run that much on the track. I didn't throw. None of it.
But let's represent. I'm an offensive lineman in high school as well, my friend. That's the number one position there is. So we have a lot in common there. So, okay, let me ask this a different way then.
Okay.
So let's go back. Let's think of coaching as coaching and not coaching track and field until we get to that point. Let's talk about when you were in high school and doing football and maybe some other sports. What was your, I almost want to say role. What was your thought process of coaching? You obviously had football coaches. Was it something that you looked up to? Was it just they were just other teachers that happened to maybe coach my favorite sport or something? What was your relationship with coaching and your coaches in high school?
Yeah, for sure. I've always been a competitive guy. And, those guys that were coaching me, I always looked up to them. Definitely father figure type guys that I really wanted to look up to. And I really respected those guys. And, through playing sports all the time and through playing football mainly, when I was in high school, And I was getting recruited and things like that for some of the smaller schools. And then my senior year, I blew my left knee out. Was still getting recruited, but I was like, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep playing. And so I started thinking about coaching, and I asked my head coach, I was like, hey, like at the end of the year, you guys have spring practice, like you guys bring all the freshmen up. Like, would you mind if I like helped out and like coached those guys? And he was like, no, that'd be awesome. So I started coaching them. And then I coached the Powder Puff team my senior year,
Yeah.
which was like my first career win. Like that was a lot of fun to kind of get that through. So senior year, that was fun. And yeah, just started coaching those guys. And then I did go to summer training. I ended up hurting my knee again. So I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm not going to play right now. And went back to high school and actually coached the freshman team that year. We did not win one game that year. It was kind of disappointing on that. We actually, our last game against our rivals, we had a chance to win. They had missed an extra point. So it was 13-13, and they lined up for a 52-yard field goal to win. And I was like, no way, this is going to overtime. Like, he missed an extra point, nailed the kick. We went 0-8 for the season. So kind of how I got into it. And I've been coaching ever since. I was talking to a buddy actually earlier today. I was like, man, we're getting old. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I've been coaching now for 17 years because I started coaching when I was 17. And I've coached every year since, mainly football. And then when I got to Cuthbertson, I coached football, wrestling, and lacrosse. And then our athletic director walked in one day and was like, hey, I'm going to make you the head track coach. And I was like, does that mean I don't have to do wrestling and lacrosse anymore? And he was like, yeah, because he knew I didn't like either one of those. And I was like, track, that seems way easier. That's not going to be that hard. And so I got in, and then here we are.
Okay. Lot to unpack there. Let's go back to high school real quick.
Yeah.
Did you grow up you're in North Carolina now. Did you grow up in North Carolina?
I grew up everywhere. My dad's in the Army, so I went to 13 schools growing up.
That might beat my record. Is that right? How many high schools did you go to?
I only went to one high school.
Yeah,
which
same.
Is crazy.
Yeah, same. Okay.
So
Dustin, I feel like I don't know. Maybe we
were destined for
we're twin brothers. Yeah, you know what yeah. That were separated at birth. Okay. In high school, did you go to high school in North Carolina?
No, I went to Airport High School in Columbia, South Carolina.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Did they have a track team? It's the track and field podcast. So I got to figure out some way to put track in this.
Yeah.
Did you just like, oh yeah, they had track, but that, it's football. So I didn't do that. What was anything at all?
So I played football and baseball.
Okay.
And then after my freshman year, I quit baseball and I really just focused on lifting, getting stronger. And I had a job and things like that. So I never actually went out, and nobody actually ever came and talked to me, benching,
Oh,
I'm
that's a lesson.
325 in high school, squatting a lot of weight. Somebody probably should have got me to throw a shot put.
Oh, that's a lesson right there for all of our high school coaches that are listening. Come on now, at least ask. You never know. This guy he would have done it. Maybe. Who knows?
You never know. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Never know what you don't ask for. So yeah, nobody ever. I mean, we had a track team. I don't know if they were good or not. Wasn't really publicized much. I do remember they got these really cool shirts because we stole the Philadelphia Eagles logo for the track team that year. And I was like, oh, those are cool. And I thought about it for about 3 seconds. And I was like, I'm not going to go run. Because in my mind, track and field was just running, and I'm an offensive lineman. So nobody told me, no, you can throw things really far. So
that's a great point.
Yeah, no, it never came up.
When so funny. That might be the most important lesson right there. Ask. There's some kid right now that it's like, man, if they just ask, or if they learn that it wasn't just running.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So when you go to help out, so your senior year, you get hurt. I hate that. You help out that spring of your senior year. Were you wanting to help out? Because there's kind of two reasons why to help out, right? One is you want to be a coach. You're like, oh, so maybe this is like my tryout, if you will, or I get to actually do the things that all the coach did to me that I hated. I get to do the freshman or whatever. And the other reason is just as valuable, but it's not going to lead towards maybe a coaching career. And I just love football. I don't know what I'm gonna do in the spring. I'm used to being at spring practice, so I'll just go out there and move dummies so I can be involved because I like football. Was it I just want to stay in football, or was there like, yeah, maybe this is a career path for me?
I think it's a little bit of both, honestly. I was planning on going to school and probably becoming like an accountant or something like that, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. But I knew I wanted to stay around the game. So going to those practices and starting to coach, I found at that moment, like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I'm not supposed to leave the game. Like, I'm supposed to be around. I'm supposed to coach. I'm supposed to help change lives. And then the accounting part was like, let's go work with money to make some money.
Mhm.
And then it kind of went to let's coach high school football and make no money. So it was kind of the exact opposite of one another. But yeah, I just kind of, even just being there for a day or two, I really found like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So, and then, just loving the game and being competitive. Like I just want to be a part of that environment. And it's kind of just kept developing and snowballing till we get here.
Yeah, and nothing's wrong. Sometimes people just want to be involved in football, and then they find out the challenge and love of coaching, and therefore they go on to be coaches and things like that. So neither one of those paths is wrong. It's just some people are like, oh, I want to be a coach, so I better start learning the X's and O's now, not wait.
Yeah.
And others are just the passion of the sport.
And my nickname in high school was Playbook. So anytime they called a play, everyone just looked at me to know what to do, and I tell everyone exactly what they're supposed to do,
Dude,
and knew all that. So like it was just kind of ingrained in me, and knowing the game more than a lot of the other kids when we were in high school and stuff like that. So
all right, brother from another mother. So my junior year, I started at right guard or left guard. It's a long time ago. I think it was right guard. My senior year, I technically didn't start. We had 5 starters, but in the very second ball, I went in at left tackle, and then the third, I went in at left guard. I played all 5 positions because I knew every stinking play. Like you called one play, and I knew the left, both tackles, both guards, center. I knew it didn't matter where you put me. So I was kind of the I consider myself a starter because I played the entire game after that, but I just didn't play the very first down. But I knew every play. They didn't call me Playbook though. That'd have been a much cooler nickname than what they actually called me, which I will not be saying on air. But that's really cool. Okay, so you talked about doing spring ball as a senior, helping out. But then you went and did summer workout for school, but you hurt yourself again. Man, I hate that. But then you went into coach. So were you not going to college after? How does that work?
No, I still went.
Okay.
Yeah, I ended up changing my major and all that once I started coaching, because I was going to go and do accounting, and then I changed my major to history. Hence to all the kids that want to coach, history doesn't change. So whatever you teach year one, you'll just add on at the end. So that's kind of how I went into it. Like I was going to be a history teacher, because whatever I teach the first year, I'll just add to the end of the class.
This guy's unlocked a lot of secrets here, man. Holy cow.
So yeah, I changed a history degree with a minor in education, and then that was the path forward from there.
So you were going to college, but helping out at your high school. So you went to school at South Carolina.
I went to University of South Carolina.
Yeah, go Gamecocks. They're literally, that's so funny. Literally, there was a guy in here. We're doing some work on the building, and so he's for some vendor, do that kind of stuff. And he had a University of South Carolina shirt on today. I literally almost went, "Go Gamecocks!"
Yeah, go Cox, baby.
Yeah, I'm an SEC homer, so I appreciate the USC there, the USC East, the real ones. They're coming to the Big Ten though, so that's going to be hard to say. So the USC West.
Yeah.
So you're helping out. So you're taking classes, you're studying history, education minor, and then, as soon as classes are over at lunch, 1:00, you're heading to the school and.
Yep. I mean,
and going
being a poor college kid, I would do the laundry at the school, because I could throw my laundry in with, after the jerseys come out. And if I needed my oil changed, I would drop it off by the auto body 4th block and let them do that while I'm getting ready for practice. And yeah, so I was the offensive line coach that first year. And then the next year, I actually went to our rival school, because that first year I wasn't getting paid. So I did it all for free. And then the second year, our rival school, I knew a guy that was over there. So I went over there as the freshman team offensive coordinator and got paid, and coached there for a couple of years. And then, or I guess 1 year, my sophomore year. Then my junior year, I coached at a middle school football team with a buddy, and I started the club football team at USC. So I was the head coach of the club football team, and I started at right tackle, which is it's a fun little game management.
That's awesome.
When you're playing. And we actually won the national championship our first year. Yeah, we played North Carolina at South Carolina for the national title the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Really?
So we did that. Yeah. So that was very interesting.
Yeah.
And then me being me, if you don't ask, you'll never get a yes. I emailed the defensive coordinator at USC.
Okay, I was going to ask.
Until he finally was like, please just come to my office. And so I went to his office, and he's like, what do you want to do? I was like, I don't care. You just tell me. And so I was a student assistant at USC my senior year. And that is the year we won the SEC East and played Cam Newton in the SEC championship game.
Yeah. Wow. You said you kept emailing the defensive coordinator.
Yes.
Not the O-line coach or the offensive coordinator.
No, because I didn't have any of their emails. I found the email for the DC at the time. So I just kept emailing him and hoping he would answer. And I'm drawing a blank on his name. I can't think. I didn't work with him much, obviously being a student assistant. I really worked for the GAs. So I really just did what they told me to do. I wasn't really around him much.
Yeah.
Last name was Ellis Johnson. He's the one that famously called the kick return for Auburn against Alabama.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh.
He's the one that called that play. There's a big story about that. But yeah, that was Ellis Johnson. He left after my year and was the head coach at Southern Miss, and then ended up back at Auburn, and then they beat Alabama when Alabama's #1 on that kickoff return. Yeah. So that was Coach Johnson there. But yeah, he's the one that was like, just stop emailing me. I'll let you do whatever you want. So I got all the gear. I was able to, do all that stuff. I broke down film for them. I did, whatever they told me to do. So I just made the GA's life a little easier that year.
My memory could be fading, but I'm pretty sure I met Ellis. I think he was a coach at Mississippi State when I coached there before he went to South Carolina.
He was.
So yeah, I feel like I remember that name. Wow. Hey, that's a great story of persistence. I mean, first of all, we already talked about, some high school coach back when you're in high school missed the boat and didn't even ask you, didn't even work to get a no from you to go do track. And then you email this coach. And if he just said no, you would have backed off, right? But you're like, hey, he ain't answering, so that's not a no. I'm going to keep going. And
right,
it led to a lot of really interesting, and probably maybe, because I was going to ask if you ever tried to get to USC to learn, more about coaching and things like that.
Yeah. So
you probably got to see some like inside stuff of just how to even just run practices, beyond X's and O's, but just how to see how they just staggered practices and made it more efficient and effective.
Yeah, and normally, even though I was there, like I wasn't going to practices and stuff like that. I was mainly just in the film room, doing all of that. So, I mean, I would go in, and that was the craziest thing that helped me in my career, honestly, moving forward, was just breaking everybody down. First and 10, -25, they ran, and then I had to know what the plays were. I mean, I knew in high school, if we called Pirates, I pulled and did this. I didn't know why. Well, I did that because Pirates was for power. And I was like, oh, that makes sense now. And Orioles was for option. But I didn't know any of that when I was in high school. But now when I'm breaking down the film, I got to put in power, G, like who pulled, and I got to know it's option or inside zone or duo. Like I had to know all these things. Plus, I had to watch the Carolina defense and know, like, here's his call sheet. He called whatever it was, right? And then I had to watch it and see if we actually ran that play, or did we audible out of it, or what happened, so I could put it all in to the system. So then we knew, on third downs, 3rd and 3, we've given up 50% first down, so they can break it down and figure out why. I'm the one that entered all that information in the computer. And that was pretty much Saturday after the game through Sunday morning, because I had to have everything entered before they got there at noon on Sunday. So.
And you're at South Carolina, one of the greatest coaches who just retired. Curtis Fry is the head track coach there. No inkling, no like, I'm just gonna go see what they're doing. Nothing, nothing. Not even in your brain space.
That's why life is so crazy. And I tell my kids this all the time. That I'm coaching. You never know what life's gonna give you. You have no clue. No way in my life. If 10 years ago you said you're going to be the director of track and field and cross country at Cuthbertson High School, I would have said you were the craziest person in the world. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm coaching, and I'm not even coaching football right now. I mean, there's no way. There's no way I would have believed you.
You're not the kid that grew up watching Carl Lewis in the 100-meter finals of the 88, 84 Olympic.
No,
it's not even.
No.
Okay.
I knew I would watch if the Olympics came on, just like I watch swimming,
Yeah, just it's on TV. There it is. Go USA. Man. Right. Yeah.
They're fast. I had no idea what times even meant. Like, oh, he ran 19 something. Oh, cool. Like, sounds good.
But there's a pretty good correlation of track to football, meaning athletes and things like that.
Oh yeah.
No curiosity. You saw some football player who also ran track, like, oh, I wonder what's going on at track. No, not at all.
No, because to me, track and field was just running, and I'm an offensive lineman. Right. I'm not running. I block for 10 yards, baby. That's it.
Okay. I promise somewhere it's going to get to track. It's going to get to really good track, actually. So keep with us. You graduate from the University of South Carolina with a history degree, education minor.
Yep.
I have to assume you're like, okay, I now go teach so I can become a football coach somewhere. Where was the first spot?
Well, actually,
I knew it.
I didn't realize that in South Carolina, you couldn't just go teach until with that degree. Like I had that degree and I had a minor, but you had to have your certificate and all that. So I had to get a master's degree.
Okay.
I didn't know that going in because once again, I didn't ask the questions. So there we go. But no, I didn't know that. So I had to go get a master's degree. So stayed at USC to go get my master's. And then a buddy of mine who I coached with a long time ago, he was starting a JUCO called Gray Military Academy.
Yeah.
And so he was starting that up. And so I actually went and coached with him. And I coached linebackers.
Your buddy was starting a program at the JUCO or starting the JUCO?
He was starting the JUCO period, like from the very beginning.
How do you, I don't even understand. How do you start a JUCO? It almost sounds a little bit like that BS high school or whatever it was. Bishop Sycamore.
Yeah, it wasn't quite like that, but it's a high school now. It's a real high school, Gray Military Academy in Columbia. It's a high school now. So yeah, it was just a post-grad JUCO that he started. I can't tell you how. I just know that I coached there. We were pretty good. We went 9-2 that first year. I lived in the apartments with the boys. Like I had to do room checks and all that. And I got a free apartment out of it. So I was in grad school. I got a free apartment, free food, coached a little football with some really cool guys. And yeah, so that was the next stop after that. And then when I was student teaching, I went to White Knoll High School.
Okay.
And I coached there. I was the defense coordinator on JV and varsity linebackers. And we made the state semifinals that year against Dutch Fork. And then I graduated my master's, and then I got to Cuthbertson.
Okay. Little insider behind the curtains here for our dear listeners. I'm starting to second guess this. I do zero pre-work on our guest. It helps me just to stay curious and ask questions. Hopefully it's a bonus to you because you like maybe my style of interviewing, and therefore helps bring out the story of our guest. I don't know if I would have believed Dustin if I'd have looked this up and been like, oh, this is a cool story. Like I'd have been like, there's nothing here. This is not true. This is fantasy land. This is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely lived a crazy life, especially with with the dad in the army. I lived in Germany, lived all over the US. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely been a crazy 34 years.
Okay.
So far.
You get to the Cavaliers, you get to Cuthbertson.
Get to Cuthbertson.
You told us you're coaching. Do you start right off the bat coaching football, lacrosse, and wrestling?
Yeah, I was basically told by the head football coach who had already hired me. Mm-hmm. And I'm moving to Charlotte because my fiance at the time is already up here because her grad school was a year. Mine was 2 because of student teaching. So I knew I had to come to Charlotte and get a job. And so I applied for this one. They just got a brand new head coach. So David Johnson gives me a call. He's like, I'd love to bring you on, hire you. So he brings me on as a defensive coordinator already at the age of, 23 now.
Wow.
So I'm coming in as DC. He's like, but to get the teaching job, you have to agree that you're going to drive the bus. Like you're going to get your CDL so you can drive for football, and you have to coach wrestling and lacrosse because they need you to drive for wrestling and lacrosse. I'm like, but I've never done wrestling and lacrosse. He said, it doesn't matter. You're going to get your CDL and you're going to drive. That's the main part. And then you can learn the sport as you go. So that's what I did. I came in, got the job. I'm the DC. I'm coaching wrestling, driving the bus, coaching lacrosse with him, and driving the bus with him.
All right. I feel like this is going to play into the evolution of becoming the track coach. On wrestling and lacrosse, because I was going to ask you, I hadn't heard those 2 words come up yet as far as done it, watched it, know how to spell it, anything. How did you learn how to coach those sports? When you feel like a guy, your story so far is like, when I'm going to go after something, I'm going to go after it. So it feels like you wouldn't be the kind of guy who's like, oh, I'm going to coach wrestling, but I ain't really coach wrestling. I'm going to be their babysitter, and they can do whatever.
Yeah.
It feels like you were like, all right, well, I better figure this out in some form or fashion. How did you learn
for sure.
lacrosse and wrestling side?
Wrestling was way easier than lacrosse because at that point, I'm 23. I'm a lot younger. I wouldn't do it today. But you want to wrestle? Let's wrestle. Like I just get on the mat and let's go. And then I would learn, if the head coach is teaching them some moves, and I would work the moves with them, and then kind of work at it that way. Just kind of being in there with them. Lacrosse was totally different. had to watch some videos on YouTube and had to try to watch some ESPN games and things like that. But I think the main reason that some of us were brought in, and kind of leads to why I was brought into track, is not really wrestling, but our lacrosse program at the time was kind of up and down. And, you know, I think they had gotten in a couple fights the year before, got some kids kicked out of games. And it was more like, we're hiring you guys to come in and kind of clean that up. They didn't really care necessarily about winning every game. It was more of like, they need to have the right attitude and then kind of go from there.
They need leadership.
Right. Right. And so that's how the track thing came. You know, the AD knew I didn't really like coaching the other two sports. And he knew I wanted some head coaching experience because my dream was to be a head football coach.
Okay.
He's like, well, you need some head coaching experience. And he's like, I don't care if we have 5 kids on the track team this year. He's like, in the past, we've had, you know, somewhere between 30 and 40 kids. He's like, I don't care if you break the team down to 5, but there needs to be rules. They need to be at practice. They can't leave and go to work. Like, it needs to be structured. He said he found kids the year before, like sleeping underneath the pole vault mats, like pulling the cover on them and things like that. He's like, it needs to be a team, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, you need that experience. So it's time for you to kind of take that over. And, you know, that's kind of what I did. I jumped in, and to start, I really treated track and field as if it was football. As far as like the way I ran things, the way that practice was structured, and the way we have our team meetings, right, you know, before and things like that. I just brought what I knew from football, which was a lot of rigid, you know, being very rigid and being very rule focused, and everybody dressing the same and everybody doing all that kinds of thing that you don't really see a whole lot at track. You know, everybody warming up together at the beginning of the meet, rather than like, well, I don't run until the 3,200 in 17 hours or whatever it might be at a long track meet. And it's like, I don't care. You can do this warm up with us type thing. And just kind of bringing that to the track team.
Yeah, this is fascinating because we all get into our own boxes, not even sometimes, period. We all get into our own boxes, and it's really, really hard to look outside that box. In fact, that's where some of the really, really great teachers and leaders of the world is they know I need these type of advisors, these type of people in my network, because they're not like me, so that I can hear outside, right? So with track and track coaches, we're very much in our own box. You don't warm up everybody together. The 3,200 meter runner who's going to be 17 hours later. Okay, you need to be off your feet in the shade, drinking water. I'll see you later when it's time to start warming up for the 3,200. So this is interesting that you have someone not only not in the track and field box, you're in your own box, your football box. I'm not saying, hopefully we'll see. You see now the things you did before, like, all right, well, yeah, okay, that was a little bit too extreme for what this sport is, but you brought something outside the box. So how did it go? You had so many people returning from the former regime, and on day one, you're putting everybody together, you're having team meetings, everybody's dressing the same, you're doing the football thing, air quotes there. How did they react?
Yeah. So the first time we took over for indoor, I think the number one thing, obviously, with being any type of good leader is you need to make sure you have people around you that can do their jobs very well, that make you look good. And I think I've had that. So when I started, luckily on the football staff, a guy had just moved here. Name is Elliot Lightfoot. He's currently the head coach at Central State in Ohio. He had been a head track coach, in college before, and he was coaching football with us. He had just moved here. His wife got a really good job, so he had moved down. He quit his last job coaching college, moved down here. Obviously, she was making really good money, so he started coaching football with us. And so I hired him. He was the sprints coach, so he did sprints and hurdles. And then I had found a lady who had run distance herself. She had never coached, but, she had dabbled in things, just kind of running on her own. And she had made fun of me one day because I coached her kids at football. And she's like, obviously the offensive lineman in me. She's like, what are you going to do coaching track? I said, I don't know what I'm doing. So you're going to coach with me. So she kind of put her foot in her mouth. And so she came out there. So it was really just the three of us.
What did you coach?
I did all the field events. So
that's some of the most technical.
Sprints.
That is some of the most technical.
Yeah.
And here's a guy who's never done it in his life.
Yes.
What did you do?
I took the field events. YouTube, baby. YouTube is the best thing. If you're from 1970s, I don't know how you did it. How you learned YouTube. That's how we do it every day. New YouTube video. Here we go. Yeah, I took the throws, the long, the triple. Well, we didn't really have any triple jumpers because that we had long jumpers,
Sure. Yeah,
high
that makes sense.
jumpers,
Yeah.
and then we didn't have any pole vaulters.
Yeah. Sure.
So we just, did that. But that first year I took over, indoor track was just kind of seen as like something you just do to kind of whatever. It wasn't like, so we didn't have all the kids. We had 22 kids show up.
Yeah.
So there's those 3 coaches. We had 22 kids. We got going. The kids seemed to have a great time. I know we like qualified, coming from football, and you think, oh my God, we had someone qualify for state, like we're going to the state championship. And then you kind of realize as you keep going that like lots of people make it to the state championship. Like it's not the same as football, but like in my mind, I'm like, man, I'm doing a great job. We got like 4 people made states. Like that's amazing. But no, we scored 1 point at states and the girls 4x8. And we thought we were rock stars. Like, we scored a point. Yes.
North Carolina has an official indoor
yes.
state series. Okay, perfect. Okay.
Yep. So we scored 1 point. We thought we were awesome. But a lot of the kids have been talking and they enjoyed it. So we went from 3 coaches and 22 kids for indoor to then we get to outdoor. And the guy that I had been coaching with in wrestling, he didn't have anything to do outdoor. So he came on and he started helping. And I found another guy that could help with throws. He only helped us for a little bit that first year, and he came and helped on. So now we had 5 coaches, but now we had 120 kids come out.
How many did they have the year before?
They had like 40 or 50, but they would cut. They would always cut down to that number.
Yeah.
And so the other crazy thing about me is I've never once cut a kid, and currently we have 285 kids signed up.
280. How many kids are in the school?
2,000. So we have like 14% of the school population.
I was about to say, so well over 10% does track. You have more kids on the track team, this is a guess, than you have on the football team.
100%. Double at least. Now, out of that 280, we'll probably have 180 to 190 that actually finish in May, go all the way through. But yeah, currently, if I were to pull up Family ID, it's probably 290 some kids that are signed up. So their parents are getting my emails.
Okay, so go back to the 120 first. So
yeah,
why did 120 kids? What were you doing differently that?
So
they didn't join last year, but this year is like, oh, this looks like worth my time.
The kids that we had, the 22 kids that we had a great time. They were learning, they were getting better, they were getting faster, they were getting stronger. And kids, a lot of people think that it's the cool thing to come in and be the kids' best friends and be cool with them and all that, which is it's all great, but kids want to be held accountable. Kids want structure.
Yeah.
So we brought the structure in, and it could still be fun, right? And so they wanted to come and be a part of it. And the girls won the regional that year. And we got 8th at the state meet. And then the guys did well. We brought a bunch of kids to outdoor states and qualified. I won't tell you how we qualify because that's for April, right?
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, we got kids, we got kids to the meet and we had a good time. And I basically told the kids from that point forward, this isn't indoor track, it's not outdoor track, it's track. And if you're not doing a winter sport and you're not doing a spring sport, then you're on the track team. And that's what we do here. And so right when we finished in May, I started the weightlifting program in June, just like you would for football. So I would go to football practice from 7 a.m. until 11. And then from 11 to 12:30, we had track in the weight room. And we would do that all summer and we would run that all the way till indoor. And now it's a 365-day program for, the track kids. Obviously, distance kids have cross country, which now I'm the director of cross country and track. And yeah, so that's kind of how the whirlwind beginning. And then I was actually offered a job in South Carolina to be an OC, offensive line coach. It probably pays about $15,000 more than it does here in North Carolina. And I turned it down. I said, because I was like, I can't leave. And they're like, why not? And I was like, well, we're winning a state championship next year. And they're like, huh? I was like, just trust me. And the girls have never lost since. So, well, we've lost outdoors, but every year we've won a state championship.
There are coaches right now listening going, he's making it too easy. Did you, at the end of that outdoor, the first year, you got 8th in state, you win regionals on the girl side, your guys are having success. Did you, was there any, I'm gonna call it football mentality, and I hate that I'm calling it that. Was there any football mentality of you of like, oh, this is easy? A real sports football, all I gotta do is just, yell at these guys, give them a little bit of structure, and we're gonna be okay. Was there any of that, or?
No, not from my
Yeah,
perspective.
yeah. That's what I'm talking about from you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, in fact, I was getting mad at people like that. I was tired of people being like, yeah, of course you did that. I mean, it's just track. Or
Mhm.
like I coach JV football the same way I would on a Friday night. And people are like, yeah, you won JV, but it's just JV.
Mhm.
Or it's like, no, like everyone comes out here and works very, very hard at whatever they're doing. You can't just say it's just whatever because you don't understand it. And then I really saw that first year, how hard track and field athletes really
Mhm.
work. Like a lot of people think, oh, well, like the only reason they're good is because they have that one kid that does X, Y, or Z. It's like,
Mhm.
no, they're really good because they got a lot of kids that work really hard. Or people think, well, yeah, he trains for football and just comes out for track. That's why he's so
Mhm.
fast. It's like,
Mhm.
no, he's so fast because he works really hard at track and then goes to football and is still fast.
Mhm.
Like, they kind of, you'll have the kid or two that are just freak athletes and it just is what it is. But I mean, those track kids, cross country kids, I never knew what they did. I mean, I really didn't know what they did. So anyone that's ever tried to say that to me, I go right back at them with like, you don't know what you're talking about. And, especially, just through the years with our weightlifting program and everything that we've put in, I think that's more of the football mentality of
Mhm.
we, you might beat us, but you're never going to outwork us. I don't care who you are. You might get us on the track one day and you might beat us as a team. Like we lost the outdoor state championship on the guys last year after we'd won 3 years in a row. But that wasn't because we didn't work hard. That was because you got us on that day.
Mhm.
But I guarantee your team didn't outwork us all year. And I will put that on anything. If you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, now we got a TikTok, any of that, I mean, you will see exactly what our kids are doing and how hard they're working day in and day out. Doesn't matter if it's June 5th or if it's in season and we're going for the state championship. Like we are working our butts off every single day.
At the end of that first year, I mean, that's quite success. I mean, that could be, if that was the uh that was the current season. I mean, like, bravo, man, you've done an amazing job. A program that was kind of participatory and getting cuts and things like that, they weren't really succeeding, and you go in and you get 120 kids on the team. That is amazing. That's bonkers. I don't care how big your school is. That's a quite amazing. They win regionals. Like, bravo, like you've done a great job. Because I'm with you. I am on a crusade to get rid of the word just.
Yeah.
All you're doing is belittling yourself or your athletes if you're talking about them. It's a very belittling belittling word. I'm just the JV coach. Bull crap! You're the JV coach. That's very important to the program. Or we just qualified 2 people to state. Dude, you qualified for 2. You know how many qualified? 0. A lot. So yeah,
Right.
definitely against this word just. But at the end of this first year, a lot of success, and you're starting to build to your summer. Like, okay, well, again, I hate to say the football mentality, but like, hey, we lift over the summer. This is what we do. We're athletes. So you're building that. Are you still a football coach who coaches track?
After the first year,
Yeah, yeah.
100%.
Okay, so you're still, I'm a football guy who I do track.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
for sure. Now, I mean, obviously, I knew how hard it was to get like the work you got to put in. It doesn't just happen. I mean, there's a lot of emails. There was a lot of turning people away. There were parents. Well, this is not what we do. I'm not going to do this. And I'm saying, okay, here's the card. Call club team X. They'll let you pay them, and you can do whatever you want there. But here at Cuthbertson, we're doing this. I have no problem doing that. That's fine. You're not going to tell me how to run my team. So, I had to do that, 3 or 4 people. There were some kids that were really good that had been good on the track team before. They didn't make it. They ended up getting themselves cut for whatever reasons because they didn't want to buy into what we were selling. So, and that was the other thing. It was, before I got here, it was a lot of, well, I do this. And I'm like, no, we do this. And this is what you're going to do to help the we. If you got to run 4 events to help the team win, suck it up. You're running 4 events to make the team win. The rest of it will take care of itself. And so we just kind of kept that mentality rolling, and kids kind of just bought in and kind of knew what we were doing. And the ones that didn't want to buy in, they fell off. And some of them came back. They might have quit for a year and then they came back and figured out that what I was saying was right. and kind of bought in. Some of those kids got college scholarships and went and competed in college. And they still say, "Hey, thank you so much for,
Oh,
making us do X, Y, or Z." And then we've had some that left and never came back. And we had some transfer out, and we had a lot of different things happen. But overall, the program that we had set up, it worked. This year's team shirt, even though I'm going into year 9 now, which is crazy to say.
yeah.
But going into year 9, you still have to preach it every day. Our team shirt is big team, little me, or team over me. Like, we've got a lot of kids that are really good. We had the kids that signed in North Carolina last year, and they're the same thing. I mean, Reese Morgan had to run 4 events at conference. He had to run 4 events at regionals. He had to run 4 events at states. And he was the fastest kid we've ever had in school history, and never did he ask me, "Hey, coach, can I only run the 100 this week? Because I need a really good 100 time." He knew what he needed to do. He had to run the 100, he had to run the 2, he had to run the 4, and he had to run a relay. Just is what it is, and it's where we're at. So, yeah, it's just kind of what we built and kind of the pride that we have in ourselves, I guess, at this point.
After that first year, what was the feedback from I assume I kind of getting the head football coach was the AD. Is that correct?
No, the head
Okay.
football coach was just the head football coach at that point.
Who hired you as the track, the AD or the head football coach?
The AD.
Okay.
His name's Mike Helms. He's now the AD at Parkwood High School.
So what was his feedback to you after that first year of winning regionals, 100 plus kids? Because he was like, "Hey, we need to turn something around here in track," and you turned it around pretty quickly. Usually it's a big old tugboat, slow moving.
Yeah.
You turned it around quickly. What was his feedback after that first year of like, "Oh man, I got this right"? And
just like, yeah, like that was awesome. And he just went back to his original point. Like, obviously it's amazing you guys won the regional. It's amazing that you guys did, had the success that you had, but it's even more amazing that you had that many kids. And when I came down to practice, everybody was working and you had the team meetings, and I didn't get the emails from the parents this year that I had in the past and that type of thing. It was like, obviously he was very excited that we had success, but he was even more excited that we had that many more kids, we had that many less complaints, and everybody was working, like they were doing their part. So I think at that point he could kind of see what was being built. I don't think he saw the vision that I had of turning down jobs, knowing that, well, I didn't know, but saying we're winning the state championship next year.
So let's get a couple things on the table, because there's 2 paths here I want to explore with you. One's personally on the coaching side, and the other is I just know there are a lot of coaches listening like, wait a minute, how do you manage a roster of 280? Heck, how do you manage a roster of 100 kids? So I want to get there, and go those 2 different paths. But first, so let's lay some groundwork on those 9 years you've been here. Give us just kind of like the 30,000 foot level, state titles, that kind of stuff, what you've been able to accomplish.
Yeah, so we actually just posted a graphic, so I pulled it up here on my phone that we just posted. So indoor track and field state championships, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23. 21 was canceled. So it probably would have been 21. Conference championships, indoor 2023. It's the only one that we've ever hosted in our conference. Outdoor track state championships, 21, 22, 23. And this is just girls. Outdoor state runner-ups, 2017, 2019. Once again, 2020 was canceled. That was probably the best girls team we ever had. Regional championships, 16, 18, 19, 21, 22, 23. Conference championships, 17, 18, 19, 21, 22, 23. That's the girls. Guys, indoor state champions in 22, 23. Indoor runner-ups, 19 and 20. Outdoor state championships, 21, 22. State runner-up in 2019. Regionals in 2019, 2022, 2023. And conference championships, 22 and 23. So a lot of success just from a championship standpoint. From the teams, and then we have the indoor national record in the girls 4x8 that we set last year. We have a few national champions. We were the runner-up in the 4x4 indoor on the guy side last year. We've had a couple other All-American performances on relays. Individually, we had the number 2 freshman triple jumper at New Balance last year. And we got 2nd and 4th in the Rising Stars triple jump last year. So we've had All-Americans all over. And then I think the number one thing for me isn't really all the championships and all that. That's all great, but since I've been here, we've had 66 kids sign scholarships or walk-ons. You know how track is,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
have signed and competed at the
Yeah.
next level. So
What was the 4x8 national record for the girls? What time?
8:48.
Man, I don't know that we ran that fast in high school when I was in high school on the boys' side. That's pretty fast. That's pretty good. And along with that, sometimes it happens because of I should say it probably always happens because of the accolades of the athletes. Several-time USTF CCCA North Carolina, boys and girls or girls?
I've won the girls only the last 3 years in a row.
Girls Coach of the Year, and most recently, I believe, correct me where I'm wrong here, mile split National Coach of the Year for the girls, I assume.
For the girls, yes.
Yeah. First of all, bravo. And I know, we routinely interview the USTF CCCA Boys and Girls Coaches of the Year here on the podcast. And, it's amazing. And each one of those coaches that we've had, and including you, Dustin, obviously you in your own right are amazing in how you coach and the leadership. And that's what we're going to start diving into here a little bit. But it's a staff thing. And before we get off today, I want to make sure we talk about your staff. We almost call this the Gill shout out podcast. I want to make sure that we do. So it's really, I know it's named Dustin Allen's the winner, but it's the coaching staff that gets it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Unless you're coaching every event now, it's the coaching staff here. So bravo to you and your coaching staff. That's quite amazing. Okay. Let's go down the personal path first. Through these 9 years, what you have obviously, assumably, have become an actual track coach, not the leadership side. We're going to get to that. But as far as the X's and O's on how to coach triple jump or miles or sprinters or hurdlers, what have you, you have to have had to have become a better coach, assumably. What did you do, formal and informal coaching education? So informal is peer-to-peer. I called local coaches. I called the South Carolina coach up. I tweeted everybody that's a coach. What do you do for this workout? This workout. That's invaluable. Very important. So I don't poo-poo informal. That's important. Formal is what USATF level 1s, level 2s, UFT, CCCAs, Altus, maybe you did Chris Parno or Kava Tolbert's online webinars, things like that, that really came out during COVID, were quite amazing. Talk to us about your coaching education, formal and informal journey.
Yeah, I mean, informal, like I said, when I first took over and I'm trying to learn all the field events, it was just YouTube. YouTube is such a great source, because you get a lot of like the old school VHS tapes that you would have bought back in the day. Yeah. All that's now uploaded, and it's still really good stuff, and you can get all that for free. They got drills. They have, all kinds of things you can find with that. But, there's books. I got my 101 high jump drills right here. Book. There's other books you got up here. This one we got for the staff a couple years ago, Coaching Women Athletes to Excellence. Different things like that. Just kind of going out and buying some things like that.
So lots of books, lots of YouTube videos. Do you remember, like, maybe someone's on their computer right now and they're like, hey, I'm at YouTube ready. Do you remember a specific video? Or I know that's a little
honestly
harder.
Google high jump drills.
Yeah, it's harder.
Find some really good video that you think, and you got to be able to understand it too, to be able to get them. So like some of them, especially if you're beginning, they're using like penultimate step. Yeah, I coach football. I know drop step. What is a penultimate step? I don't know. So I'm going to skip that video for now because I'm not to that point. So get the videos that like you can understand. Yeah. And then kind of build your knowledge. And then finally you're going to, so now I can go back to that video because I know the penultimate step.
You know what I love about that? That's actually another good lesson here, Dustin. I'm so glad we're doing this, man. So glad. Is as salespeople, by the way, we get caught up in this too, and we call this jargon. And between you and I, if you and I were talking about the high jump as an experienced high jump coach and as a former experienced high jump coach, we could talk about the penultimate, the arch, all these kind of steps, the 5 steps, and we know what we mean when we mean 5 steps, 10, right? But we forget sometimes that there are a lot of coaches coming into our profession every day. There are coaches who are on different paths, different parts of the path of their coaching journey today. And if we only talk jargon, we lose them because they get intimidated. They don't learn because they're like, well, I don't know what that, I could never learn what penultimate is. And then, of course, if they learn, you'd be like, oh crap, that's what it is. That's so simple, right? So we just have to be careful that we have to do that as salespeople because, we're manufacturers. So we're making all this stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that we say to each other because we're manufacturing. It's like, oh, you know what? The coach don't call it that. I got to remember what we actually call it on the streets out there. That's what's important. And so I'm communicating well to you. So that's a great point about what I call jargon out there. We just have to make sure we're conscientious that not everybody's where we're at. So let's have good communication. Awesome. Okay, keep going.
Well, have you ever heard the Brett Favre story?
I'm scared to say that because there's a lot of not so good Brett Favre.
Well, okay, the good Brett Favre story.
This is like the second time in 3 months that Brett Favre has come up on this podcast. That's not good. All right, what's the good?
Well, he has the one where he's like in his third or fourth year starting for the Green Bay Packers, and I think it was Trent Dilfer was there. He was talking to him, and he's like, "Hey, I got a real question for you." And he was like, "What's up? Why does Coach keep saying when they bring in the nickel?" He's like, "What does that mean?" Now, this Brett Favre been starting for 4 years in the NFL, and he's like, well, the nickel, when they bring in the fifth defensive back and they take out a linebacker, and Brett Favre goes, that's it? That's it? That's all they're talking about? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, and the dime is when they bring in a sixth defensive back and take out a linebacker. He's like, that's so stupid. Like, what? It's the same thing. It's jargon, penultimate stuff. I mean, it's not a huge, big deal, but we want to make a word out of it. So the nickel and dime.
We just have to remember
had no idea.
That's
and he'd been starting in the NFL for 4 years.
Yeah,
and had to ask Trent Dilfer what the nickel defense was.
And now allegedly he's stealing money from the residents of Mississippi. I'm really against this guy on this point, man. I read a huge long article and I was like, this guy's not a good guy. This is not good at all, man. There are a bunch of other parts that he's not so good at either, to be frank. Good football player. We'll give him that. YouTube video. I love that. There's this famous Yago, I think is how you pronounce his last name, javelin thrower from Kenya who learned how to throw the javelin by watching YouTube videos, and he wins the gold medal. So I love, you're like the YouTube coach. You learned how to coach by watching YouTube videos. This is great.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, YouTube and, obviously when I say Coach Lightfoot, he's been around for a long time. Yeah. So, I mean, pick his brain for everything that he knew and everything that he was bringing to our team. And
any clinics?
I went to the USATF. I'm a level 1 coach.
Yeah.
Haven't had time.
Not that. Don't get there just yet because you're still in your informal journey. Like the North Carolina, I think we do an all sports state clinic in the summer or something like that. And so some coaches will speak, and so you're anything like that.
I never made it to any of those. None of that. I talked to some local coaches who've been around for a while.
Did you call your old high school track coach up and?
No,
that's kind of a joke.
I don't even know who that. I honestly have no clue who that even is. But no, I called Wingate, which is down the street from us. Wingate University.
Oh, Wingate.
And their coach was pretty good.
Yeah,
he actually came and spoke to our whole staff one day.
Oh, very cool.
So I called him over. Just little things like that, and just trying to pick up. Or I'd go to meets, and I wouldn't actually coach. I mean, I was coaching, but I was just standing there. And I'd actually let the other coaches talk to my kids. Because a lot of times at track, that's what's awesome about our sport. You would never do it in football. Right. If you miss a tackle, I'm not going to be, hey, if you want to tackle him, do this, right? But no, at track meets, they do that all the time. Like all of us do. Like you see a kid doing something wrong and you're like, hey, do this. So I would just listen to them and let them coach my kids sometimes at the meets.
Why is that? I think there feels like there's some obvious answers there. Because with football, it's 1 versus 1, right? So if you help the other team, you could lose, and therefore you're 0-1 on that game, right? We're in track, it's like, but there's still like your kid could still lose.
Yeah.
But are we so focused on only our kids' performance, not their place in track?
I think in track, it's more of like where football, because of how it is, and it's so combative and it's so 1v1 and it's so me against you and team versus team and you're wrecked, like all of that. Mm-hmm. I think obviously it's one way, but in track, I feel like we're more of like a community of coaches all together. And like, if you don't want me to coach your kid, like you're just going to say something. But like, I think we all have the athlete's best interest and we want to see really good marks rather than like just see one team win.
I'm going to ask.
I think we'd rather see a team win with a girl that runs like a 4:30 mile. Like we all want to see that rather than like in football where you want your one team to win or lose. And if that coach isn't as good as you, like you're just going to beat them in the X's and O's of the game where in track, like you want to see that kid jump 7.2.
I'm gonna ask it the controversial way. Do you think it's because in track our egos are so big we think we can coach better than the other coach?
I don't, at least I don't view it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
But some people might be that way.
Good save, good save.
No, I mean,
No, I'm
I've
just saying,
had,
yeah.
I've had parents, parents, ask my coaches for like advice or like, do you do any training sessions in the summer, things like that. So I think a lot of times with track, there are so many coaches that run club teams or so many coaches that run their own like high jump camp in the summer or whatever. And so like, if you could help a kid at a meet, yes, you're helping that kid, but two, they also might come back and come to your clinic or something too. And I just think that, yes, we're competing against each other. It's just different. I
It's
don't know
different.
how to really
Yeah.
explain it. It's just different than the teams. Like it is a team sport
Mhm.
because I run everything. Everything we do is team oriented. But at the same time, it's individuals, and you want to see you want to see those kids do great things. So
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
It's
I don't know
different.
that- I
Yeah.
don't think there's a perfect answer.
Yeah, I don't. That's why I say there's some logical of like, oh, it's 1v1 in football, so and it's the high score. It doesn't matter if you scored 60 and we scored 61. The 1-0 is what matters. Where in track,
Right.
it's like, oh man, I want my kid to jump 18 feet, and if you jump 17-11, that's okay. My kid still wins, and they jumped 18. You jumped your PR. That's great. It is different. It is different. So what official coaches ed did you do? Clinics? Now we're talking about the level ones, USATF, USTFCA, Altus, etc.
Yeah, I mean, really the only official one I've done is USATF level 1.
Yeah.
And I've wanted to move to 2, but I just haven't had the time to
go
out there and do it. But really, yeah, I mean, that was it, just the one, and that would have been year 3, I believe. Whatever year Pokemon Go came out, because I remember we would leave and go play Pokemon Go together because my whole staff went. So we were walking around Greensboro playing Pokemon Go.
Oh, cool. Do you remember who any of the teachers were?
Venables from Liberty.
Sean. Yeah, great guy. Yeah.
That's the only one I remember off the top of my head. But
that's cool.
Yeah, no, it was a great clinic. Definitely learned a lot. And I guess other formal clinic, it was more of a rules type clinic. In a FHS, I'm an official for them. So I went to that officials course.
Yep.
That was put on by DePaul Mittman from here in North Carolina. So those are really the only 2 that I've gone to. Still keep watching YouTube videos and things like that to this day, and just talking to people.
Do you think, and you don't have the experience on the other side to have the comparison, but now you've met a lot of coaches and you've had a lot of success, so you've seen different ways of coaching, but do you think because you didn't participate in track, it gives you an advantage because you don't have any of the quote unquote bad habits? Like typically we talk about when coaches first go into coaching, they'll typically fall back to how they were coached. It's all right? I mean, you're a 22-year-old out of college and you go to coach and you're like, well, I know this is how my college coach trained me, and this is how my high school coach trained me, so that's what I'm going to do. And then they evolve as they go to clinics, talk to other people, watch YouTube videos, etc. You didn't have that. There was no fallback to a track coach anyway. Now you did some falling back to how football coaches coached you, but you don't have any bad habits as a thrower, so you're not imparting those on your athlete. You have come from a very clean slate on the technical side of how to coach the events that you coach. Is that an advantage for you think?
That's such a hard question to answer. Maybe in some ways it is. Definitely different. Like you said, obviously, even with the warm-up that we do, I mean, it's 100% different. But we've changed, over the years too, even though we still warm up as a team, but we changed kind of how we do it, and more biomechanics involved and things like that. And so we've changed back to some of the things we probably would have done at the beginning had I known some things that I know now. But I think it's yes and no. I think at the beginning, it probably would have been good to have known anything. I mean, coming in knowing legit nothing. I don't even know how a meets run. I don't know when the events are. I don't know how long, I don't know anything. To kind of where we are now. Yeah, I mean, that's so hard to answer. I think it's good and bad. I think if you are a coach that refuses to study and listen and change your ways, and you're just stuck in whatever you learned, then it's probably bad. But if you are someone that has a base knowledge but is still willing to add on to that and to change things, or, just tweak a little bit here and there. Cause I'm sure with your base knowledge, it's still pretty good, but there are things you could do a little bit better if you tweak it. That's probably the best way. Being a coach that had done it, has some knowledge, and is able to tweak and still learn and know that they're not the end all be all. And even, I've been coaching 9 years, and 20 years from now, when I'm still coaching, I guarantee that there's going to be some new stuff that I'm going to have to learn and be able to add back in if I still want to be successful, or I could be the old grumpy guy that says, get off my lawn. There's one of the two ways you can go. And I think anyone that, I would tell you that, Bill Belichick and some of those guys at the top of their games are still trying to innovate and change some of the things that they do. And Belichick might not be the best example, 38-3 yesterday, but some of those guys that have been really successful for a really long time, there's no way they're running the same offense they did 30 years ago. You know what I mean? So
any part of you wish you could magic wand, go back to high school and do track at all?
Yeah, I think I could magic wand and wish I could go back and play basketball and track and just do a lot of it instead of, being felt like we had to pick at such a young age. I wish I would have done a lot of things now instead of just lift and play football. Play football. That was my whole sophomore, junior, senior year. I wish we would have, all of us would have done more. That's why I really try to make sure that if our kids come in and they're like, hey, we've had a lot of them. Hey, coach, I'm really highly successful in soccer. I'm on this club team and that club team, and I play for the school. I can't come to every practice, but I'd like to be part of the team. Sounds good. Let's make it work. You let me know when you're available. I'll let you know when we need you, and we'll kind of go from there. So you just got to let these kids have options and know these kids are kids. They need to play. They need to do whatever they want to do. It can't be, nope, you're on the track team, so you're only on the track team.
That's a great segue. So we went down your personal development path. Appreciate that. I can respect that a lot. It's quite fascinating to me. Now let's talk about the leadership, running a team aspect. And I love that you did a great bridge there. It's almost like we practiced it. That was really good. Because what I'm interested in, there's coaches that are listening, like I said earlier, right now, and they're like, how do you even manage 200 kids? How do you manage that example you just gave there? Why do you manage that way? So let's start with, how did you built up really quickly to 120 kids, and now you sit at 280. There had to be some growing pains with that number of coaching staff. How do you buy uniforms for that? How do you travel that? How do you enter that? How do you keep quote unquote all 280 happy, meaning emotionally involved into the team and the meets and things like that? Give us kind of an overview of the growing pains that you had to overcome.
Yeah, obviously that first year, luckily we only had 22 that first indoor, because I didn't even know what athletic.net or mile split or any of that even was. I had to get accounts and do all. I'm like, wait, we gotta do what? Right. So to input people into meets and do all that, luckily I had that time to kind of learn that. And then when we get to the outdoor, the 120 people, we had 5 coaches. And so we would break up. You had your sprint and hurdle group. Then you had your throws group, and then you had your distance group. So the distance coach was in charge of the distance kids. The sprint coach was in charge of sprint hurdles. Throwers would go with the throws coach. I would help the sprints coach until halfway through when we took the jumpers. Then jumpers would come with me. So they would do the first half of the sprint, and we would do that. And we just broke them up into their groups. You knew you were we at practice, we're girls group 1, and they get up and they run their rep. Girls group 2, they get up and run their rep. Girls group 3, run their rep. And then we do the same with the boys and their rest time. We just kind of have watches. That they finish, boom, set their clock. Next group goes, set their clock. Next group goes, set their clock. And then group 1's ready to go while everyone's still resting. And then you just kind of get it going like that. So that was at the beginning when there was, a smaller group of us. Now we have 9 coaches on staff. So now we have a pole vault coach. We have a long and triple jump coach. I do high jump. We have a throws coach. We have a sprints coach. We have a hurdles coach. We have a middle distance coach. We have a distance coach. And so now, even though it is a huge team.
So how did you grow those coaches? So there's people out there right now that are like, man, You got 9. I wish I had 4. I got 2.
Yeah.
How did you grow? They don't just fall off of trees here. So how did you grow coaches and coaching staff?
Yeah, just people that were interested in the sport that live around here and just, asked if they could come out and help. And then we would talk and see if we fit together, and we kind of let them come out, and then people would get hired in the building, and the principal would be like, hey, we're hiring this guy for science teacher. He used to run for X school. And I just go talk to him like, hey man, we need you. Like, come on out. And so
did you like create a, this is only half joking, actually. Anybody else would be full joke. This is only half joking with you. Did you create like a YouTube playlist? Like, hey man, so you're going to coach shot put. So here's, I put together a playlist of 10 different coaching, how to coach the shot put videos. How did you?
No, I never created a playlist. No, that's good though. No, I never did that. But a lot of the guys that came in all had experience. So,
okay.
As we found new people, they either had hurdled before, they had jumped before, they had, whatever. And then like, here's a perfect example of how crazy I am. I ran a cornhole league for a few summers at a local spot. So we're playing cornhole. It was one of the guys who I knew. I coached his daughter, and he's, we're playing. And I was like, man, you want to come coach pole vault? He's like, no, I don't want to coach pole vault. Like, never done pole vault before. And I was like, yeah, you just watch some YouTube videos. Like, it'll be fine. I'll teach you. Like, no big deal. And he's like, no, I don't want to do that. And he was like, but there's this lady I know, she used to pole vault, and I think she coached, at some point. I was like, oh yeah, give her a call. So we're out playing cornhole. It's 8:00 at night. He gives her a call, right? And she's like, I was like, here, give me the phone. And he was like, here, the track coach from Cuthbertson wants to talk to you. And she's like, okay. And I get on the phone, and boom, I'm like, hey, are you interested in coaching? She's like, yeah, I might have some interest. Yeah. All right, cool. Here's when we practice. What sizes are you? Thanks. Got all that. See you tomorrow. And 100%, Coach Swift is now a math teacher at Cuthbertson. She was teaching math at a middle school in like uptown Charlotte. She now makes the 35-minute drive every day, and she's one of the best pole vault. She's one of the best coaches we've ever had. But she's now currently our pole vault coach, and our pole vaulters have been absolutely amazing the past 2 years with her. But that's how I found her. You get no's if you don't ask, right? Kind of started.
There's your theme.
Absolutely.
Thing. Yeah, absolutely.
So she's here coaching, and then like our jumps coach now is Coach Lou. He jumped at Florida State.
Well, so hold on. So how, what you're doing though, and how you're coaching and leading the team, because I love how you're like girls 1 and girls 2. That's if you don't know football, that's a very football way of doing things. So how did you get these coaches in, and if they whether they were former athletes or former coach other places, they have not been athletes or coaches in this style. I don't want to call it football track, but your style, your very unique style here in regards to track and field. How did they assimilate? Did you ever have anybody that's like, hey man, you're doing this wrong and you need to be doing X, Y, and Z, and you're like, well, that's great, and you can go do that somewhere else because this is not how we're going to do. Did you ever have any friction on and you would not name any names? I'm just wondering how you navigated that, maybe.
Yeah, we have. And a lot of times it was from people from the outside that weren't coaching with us, that might have had kids on the team or had experience coaching themselves, would tell us all the things that we were doing wrong. Mm-hmm. And I'm a very I'm very competitive, and I can be fairly petty when it comes to things like you telling me I'm doing X, Y, or Z wrong, and then it works, and then I'm going to make sure you know about it.
I think that's called keeping receipts.
Yeah, I'm a very Dion, Michael Jordan type when it comes to, and I took offense to that. So yeah, I really took offense to a lot of those things. But I think at this point, like I've won 13 state titles. So like a lot of people ask, like, okay, so what's the point anymore? Like, you've won 13. Well, the point is 14 and 15 and 16 or whatever it might be. That's the point. But like 13, like that's great. That's what we've done before. But like we got to keep going. And so something's got to keep you motivated. And it's the receipts. I kept that personal. It's, there's a local team in the area. If you get on our Facebook or Twitter or any of that, you can find the team out on your own. We had won our first state title, and they took offense to that. And they made a shirt, and their shirt says more rings than our next door neighbors.
Cool. Hold on now. You got to like that though. You don't like to be on the receiving end, but
hey, y'all make shirts. And I posted this the other day when we got ring number 13. Some people design shirts, others design rings. So it is what it is. But And that shirt was made like 8 years ago by people that aren't even there anymore. But I got to keep, like, that's how I keep my edge. Like, I got to keep that in mind. But yes, they were, to your direct question, there were plenty of people telling us that we were doing it wrong, but we won the state championship, and then we won the state championship, and then we won the state championship. And it's like, okay, keep telling us it's wrong. There's been some parents that have taken their kids from here that we've had we've had arguments with, and they transferred their kids out and did whatever. And I still remember, like, National Coach of the Year article comes out. I really wanted to take it and send the text. Like, you told me I had no clue what I was doing.
Self-awareness is very hard. I love you do have the self-awareness. You started that whole tribe by saying, I am petty. So I love the self-awareness. That's really good.
Yes.
It's good.
It's maybe not a good quality, but at the same
not the
time,
best at all times. Sure.
Yeah, it definitely makes me who I am.
Absolutely.
And I give respect at all times. You ever hear any interview I've done after winning a state championship? Like, I give everyone their due at the same time. But at the same time, like, if you're gonna come after us, like, I'm gonna let you know at the end of the day, like, that probably wasn't a good choice.
All right, let's get a little tactical. Give us some more, a little bit granular on that management of that roster, because I'm just thinking, like, how many buses? How do you budget? I mean, I assume Cuthbertson must be, your AD's like taking care of you guys budget-wise, equipment and uniforms and what have you. How are you, like, if someone right now has 50 kids and says, man, I'm gonna have 100 next year, but I don't even know how I would do that fundraising, et cetera. How have you grown in those kind of tactical belly aches that you've had to have?
Yeah, if you ask anyone that's been around Cuthbertson athletics for any time, old AD, new AD, the current basketball coach, he told the new basketball coach, or he's the girls coach, he told the new guys coach, if you know anything about money, go down the hall and talk to Dustin. We do absolutely amazing at fundraising. The parents didn't want to do the old way. They didn't want to sell the cards and sell the cupcakes and do all that. They were like, can you just tell us what we owe you? And just go from there. So we charge $175 per season, or $300 for the year. Mm-hmm. It's not mandatory. I say the word expected. It is expected. Obviously, if there's a family that can't afford that, I mean, we make it work. It's not, the end of the world, but it's something that has to be done. I mean, mm-hmm. You work for Gil, you know how expensive some of that stuff is. We just got the best high jump standards in the world from you guys. Mm-hmm. And we had to have the money to pay for those. Mm-hmm. And so, we do have that. So I asked the parents for $300 a year, basically, and then I break it down for them. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's pretty much about 65 days in a year I'm not with your kid. So you're paying me $1 a day. Mm-hmm. to be with your kid. And we do, like I said, June, July, and August is all summer weightlifting, Monday through Thursday. And then now we're in the running and lifting part. And then we get into the real season, mm-hmm. where I'm with your kids every day for 2 hours, plus all day on Saturday for meets. Like, I'm putting a lot into it. So I'm just asking, for $300 mm-hmm. at the end of the day, which roughly is $1 a day. Mm-hmm. I think most of us can afford, to donate $1 a day. On top of that, this will be the 8th year that we run our Grinch 5K. So it's a community event that we run. So we usually get 200 to 300 runners from the community. It's $35 to enter. You get a t-shirt. We have Santa Claus out there. We play a lot of holiday music.
So you're talking about like a 5K, a run 5K for the community.
Yeah, just a fun run, like a turkey trot that you would do in your neighborhood. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we run that as a fundraiser every year. We get sponsors, from local businesses and things like that. So usually we're able to bring in somewhere between like $8,000 to $12,000, just depending on the year and how many people sign up. So we do that. We run the Clash of the Carolinas, which is one of the biggest meets, in the Carolinas every year. We're up to about 100 teams. So we have
track meet or cross country?
Track meet.
100 teams at one meet?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, invitational.
Wow.
Yeah.
What, invitational the whole state?
No, I mean, it's both the Carolinas.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, we do that. It's always the week after national. So this year it'll be, I think it's March 16th. And then last year we had a big sponsor for that. So they gave us, I think theirs was $3,000. So it was the South Charlotte Hyundai Clash of the Carolinas or whatever.
Okay.
So we just,
Yeah.
we put their name on it and get some free money
Mhm.
from them. We've had we've had people come out and sell t-shirts, and we get the t-shirt
Mhm.
money,
Mhm.
concessions.
Mhm.
So we get the concession money, all that. I mean, I think we make somewhere between 10 and 15 on that every year. And then we also host the Charlotte City Championship, which is much smaller, but it's about 50, 60 teams. But you got to have a qualifying time to get in.
Mhm.
So it's smaller. It's probably 1,500 kids, where the Clash is more like 4,000 kids. We host that, and that usually brings in somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 each year. So that's 3 really big fundraisers, plus the donations that the parents make.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, I mean, we are in a good area, where it is easier to do this. You're not gonna be able to do this at every school.
Right.
Every kid on our team must buy their uniform.
Okay.
So the singlet and the shorts roughly is like $85, but
Mhm.
it's good for 4 years.
Mhm.
And then we make everyone buy a jacket, a warm-up jacket, warm-up pants.
Mhm.
So as a freshman, it's going to cost you $250
Mhm.
to get everything, but I don't make you buy anything else while you're here other than the team shirt. You make everybody buy a team shirt,
Mhm.
which is like $32 a year.
Mhm.
So you're $250 in your freshman year, and then you're $32 past that on gear. So it's not crazy expensive. And then we do ask for the $300 every year.
Mhm.
So you could come through, I guess, Cuthbertson track. If you did the $300 every year and you bought the gear, you're roughly at like $1,500 by the end for 4 years. When a lot of people are paying more than that for one season of travel basketball.
Oh yeah, easily. Yeah, yeah, right.
So,
What
that's kind of how, that's kind of how we do it. But yeah, I do a really good job of fundraising and kind of to get to that point of where we are. And we know what we need, and to do all those things. The biggest cost really is the invitationals for indoor, because they charge you per kid. We're like outdoor, pay $200 and both squads, and then for indoor, it's $25 per event per kid. It's like we go to Liberty, it's like $4,500 to enter our full team.
Oh yeah.
And then Virginia Showcase, things like that. Like those get
Yeah.
really expensive when you bring a team like ours.
Right.
Um,
How do you bring your teams? So there's not a lot of meets. I shouldn't say that. I don't feel like there's a lot of meets where, I'm just going to do simple math here. I'm from Alabama. 140 boys and 140 girls can come to a meet, and all of them can compete. Some of them have like, restrictions, 2 per school per event, things like that. So how do you logistically get them all of them in a meet?
So there's a few things that we do. Number one is if we host a home meet, so a polar bear, a dual meet, whatever it might be, throughout the season, you're guaranteed to run. If you're on our team, you're guaranteed to run in those meets.
Right.
So we try to host as much as we can. It's twofold.
Yeah.
1, I get all my kids in.
Mhm.
2, their parents are going to buy concessions. 3, their parents have to buy tickets to get in. So now you're generating,
you're not paying for a bus and food.
There's
and
no
such,
busing.
no
There's
entry
none of that. You
fees.
just pay for the starter. And I have my own timing, so I time every meet. And just do that. So that works kind of double-edged sword there. You get all your kids in, and you can make some money on the back end there. Trying to do it that way. When we have to go to away meets, we have an A team, a B team, and then like a C team, but C's really not going to travel. They're only in home meets. And that's usually going to be your younger kids. But I can kind of get into my philosophy of not cutting in a little bit if you like. But the A team kids will go to like the biggest meets. They're like the championship team. They're going to go to conference. They're going to go to regionals. They're going to go to states. They're going to go to the Clash. They're going to go to they're going to the big stuff every single time. And then the B team is they sub in when you don't need the A team. So they're the weekday meets. They're kind of going to those meets where the weekend might be the A team. And then the C team pretty much runs at home meets unless somebody gets hurt, and you make your way up. And that's an also big way to compete. Like, you want to compete, you want to go to the meets, then let's work your butts off. Let's start beating some people and let's get in.
That seems like it would take like your time management skills and I mean, that just seems very complex in the sense of like, all right, which kids are going here? Which kids are on the B team? Okay, no, but so-and-so's hurt on the A. Okay, well, we need to move him or her up for this weekend. There's a lot of coordination going on. Not only you as the head honcho doing all the entries maybe and stuff like that, but a lot of feedback from your coaches of, hey, who's ready for this weekend? Who needs to sit out this weekend? Who can we move up? That's a lot. And then communicating that to the athletes and the parents. There's a lot of coordination going on here.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that is what I'm probably better than most at, is that chess game of who to put in what events, how to still win at the end, where to go. Like we have that national record 4x8, but they're not running the 4x8 state championship. Like, because we need them to run the mile and the 1,000 and the 32. So like our B team then gets subbed in, and I know that even with the B team, we might get fourth. So like, okay, so we're gonna lose 5 points to pick up however many points when they get put in the 32 or whatever. Right. Just that mismatch. Like that's where I'm better than everybody else. I'm not better. If you want to hire me to come coach your sprinters and make them the greatest sprinters in the world, you're hiring the wrong guy. Same thing, distance, whatever. Like that's why I do high jump. There's like 7 kids. Like I coach.
Oh yeah. Kids. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
But I control everything. So my job at practice is my 7 high jumpers, the weight room, and I do all the relays. So that's what I'm doing. So you might come to our practice tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow, we're in the off season, but if it's a Monday, let's just say it's a Monday, and the high jumpers are with the sprinters, I might just stand up top and watch and help wherever I might be able to help. I'm not going to be crazy hands-on that way, but Nick Saban might not be hands-on that way either. Right. So, he's not the DBs coach anymore, but that's what he used to be. So he might walk over to the DBs and say something, but he's also just walking around and watching the whole practice. So on a day-to-day practice, I might not have my hands in everything because I've hired people that I trust to do their jobs. But I'm running all that other stuff. Yeah. The entries, the emails, the fundraising, the buses, all of that type of stuff. And then travel, you asked about travel.
Yep.
We will take any kid that wants to go. We will pay for it for indoor. If they want to go to the Liberty meet, because they'll take all 280 of our kids. If they want to go to Virginia Showcase, they'll take all 280 of our kids. We will pay and enter them, but you got to get your kid there. So there's no way we could travel.
So you're not rolling up 9 buses. That's what I was in my head. It's caravan.
No, that doesn't happen. Now we've taken 3 buses before to like a local meet, but that's only 5 or 10 miles down the road. It was our second year we weren't that big. Yeah, I mean we were, but not like we are now. We had like 150 kids, and we went to the first indoor meet, and I make all my guys wear gray and all the girls wear blue. And so I went to run to the restroom. There was this kid. He's like, "Holy crap, who's that team in gray?" And I was like, "That's Cuthbertson." And he was like, "Oh man, what about the team in blue?" I was like, "That's the Cuthbertson girls." And he was like, "Holy crap, how many people do you have on your team?" I was like, "Yeah, there's like 150 of us." But that was like a meet. Yeah, we took all 3 buses.
So how big can you get? Like, what would you think would be your maximum number of kids? And why wouldn't you, again, very, stereotypical football mentality. Why aren't you cutting to give more time? We hear about with track and field, individual attention, individual workouts and things like that. And, I coach at a fairly high level. I remember thinking, I was like, yeah, it's not as individual. We're not actually writing down Joe's workout separate than John's. Yeah. And, there are nuances. Joe may do a little less than Jimmy, et cetera, because of different reasons. But so how big do you think you could actually get? You got more kids in school left to go. And then why wouldn't you cut? Talk to us about that non-cutting philosophy with such a huge squad.
How big? I don't know. I really don't. To us, it doesn't seem like, when we get to the end of the season and we're only down like 110 kids left, it's like, where'd everyone, no one's here.
Yeah, it's 110.
Yeah. It's like, to us, it's not like, it's like, whoa, where did everybody go? Or like, we'll go to practice sometimes of like, everyone's not here, I'm taking attendance. Cause like I have a rule, like if you miss 3 practices unexcused, you're off the team. Like that's the only way you can get cut. And like, nobody's here today. And I'll take attendance. I'm like, everyone's here, but it doesn't look to be that many people. And so I don't know, maybe 350.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever get there. But yeah, I don't know. But the reasons that I don't cut our sport, I like to say our sport's everyone else's punishment, right? So it takes a lot to do our sport and to even get ready to get to a tryout. I mean, at our school, you would have lifted in June, you would have lifted in July, you would have lifted in August, you would have ran and lifted in September and October, and then we get to October 30th, which would be the first day of tryouts. So you've worked out for 5 months. You've done everything that I've asked you to do. You've ran, you've lifted, you've done everything. And we get to that point, and now I'm going to cut you 3 days later. Like that's really tough for me in a sport where you're just building days. Like you're just building on what you did the day before, and you just want to get better and better and better and better every single day. And now I'm just going to cut you. And my philosophy, we've had lots of kids that would have been cut that when they were seniors scored at the state meet. And so who are you going to cut if you've been really successful the last 8 years? If I started cutting this year, who am I going to cut? I'm going to cut all the freshmen. So if I cut freshmen, they ain't coming back. Right. Not to our sport. I went out there and tried to get all these kids to come out, and now I'm going to cut them. And it can't work that way. You have to have one or the other. So I guess at my high school, it was the other. They ain't going to try to find me. They're just going to take what they get, right? But if I go out there, so like last year we had 90 freshmen. Well, I would have cut down, maybe would have had 5 freshmen. Well, 5 freshmen are going to turn into 1 senior. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have a class with 1 senior. Right. Last year we had 43 seniors. Mm-hmm. So that 90, by the time 90 turns into 70, 70 turns into 60, 60 turns into 40. Right. If you have 40 kids on your team and you think that you're a really good coach and you've had 40 kids that lifted in June, July, August, and then ran September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, and then took 2 weeks off and then lifted again in our sport where you're trying to build on it every day, you're going to lose because you cut. So you better find a way to keep those kids in that program and keep your programming the way that it is. And because by the end, you have 40 kids that have built days on top of each other for 4 years. They might not win the state championship, but they're going to win at the conference level.
They'll be solid.
They might score at the regional level, right? They might get 8th place at states, right? They're going to help you win in the end, because if you're good and you know how to train, that's 4 years of training that they have. And you would have cut them as freshmen, they would have never came back, right? And so if you can keep them around and you can keep them in a program that you believe in, right, for 4 years, then at the end, that they're going to be good. And I know a lot of track people, but I still don't consider myself necessarily a track person because I didn't come from that. But when I play football, I got to know how to catch. I got to know the plays. I got to know how to block. I got to know how to do this and that, right? If I do basketball, I got to know how to shoot. I got to know how to catch the ball. I got to know how to set a screen. I got to know plays. I got to do whatever. Track and field, you don't have to know any of that. I got to know I got to run that way really fast, or I got to throw this thing that far. And the only thing I need to become faster. I need to become stronger, right? I need to be able to do those things. Well, how do you do those? Lifting weights, sprinting, doing all of that. And eventually I'm going to get better at those things the longer I do it. So if I cut the freshman, I'm going to have nobody at the end. So it's a long game. I'm playing for 4 years from now. I don't want to win 13 state championships. I want to win 30. And my belief is the way to get there is to keep these kids a part of this program.
I like how you put that. The days just stack on stack on stack. Yeah, I really like that. I'm imagining, like, I'm thinking of you're obviously a big lifter and off-season training. So I'm thinking of like, the weight room at your school must get crowded with other sports, basketball, football. You're taking resources. Have you ever, because spoiler alert, you don't coach football now. Have you had a new football coach come in? And, again, I'm being very stereotypical here. The football coach rules the roost. That, everybody else is secondary. We're the number one sport here. Have you ever had any animosity? I mean, you seem to have a fairly good relationship with other coaches that they're saying, hey, go to that guy if you want to learn about fundraising. Have you ever had to run into where it's like, hey, man, we're also an important sport here, and because of our numbers, we need the weight room and these resources? Any clashes with other coaches? Again, not naming names.
No, the only clash was during COVID. When it was limited numbers and football season got pushed. We played football in the spring and track was right behind it. But we couldn't get into our weight room. And being who I am, I don't take no for an answer. So we lifted at the local CrossFit gym, which one of our parents owns. And so we just, okay, fine, we'll go over there and we'll get our work done. That was really the only real clash. Sometimes they try to argue with me on what time we can go in there, but on that, no. I mean, I think at this point it's established. You know, I've had the same weightlifting. We lift in the summer at 11 o'clock, and we've lifted at 11 o'clock since the day I took over. And we lift right now when school starts on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4:15 after we run. And we've done that since I got here. And when we get to the season, we will lift on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 3 to 5:15. We've got 3 groups that come up at different times. So some run first, some lift first, whatever it might be. And that's kind of what it is. And you can't come in as the new guy and try to tell me like, nah, like that's what we've done for 9 years. I don't change my stuff up. Like, this is what we're doing. So
he's just the track coach. Oh, not just, buddy.
Not here. No, not here. It's not, you know, it's very respected here for sure. Just based off, you know, everything that we've done.
Earlier, I asked you, were you a track coach who coached football or a football coach who still coached track? And at that point, you were still a football coach who coached track. Now you're certainly a track coach who coaches football, except for you don't coach football. So talk us through that. What happened and why?
Yeah. So my wife got pregnant a couple years ago, and we had 2 twin boys that are turning 2 years old next week. And so once they were born, you can't do what you did before. My whole life, I've been able to do everything and you know, whatever I wanted to do at all times, you know, whether that be go to football practice. I mean, I remember going to the playoffs those first couple of years where we would have to go to football practice until 6, and we moved to indoor track practice, which is outside in North Carolina, to 7 o'clock. So I was here 7 in the morning, and then I'd leave here at 9 p.m. and I would do football and track. Mama ain't having that. not with 2 little boys at home. So yeah, no football right now. This is the first year I am the director of cross country and track, but we have a cross country and track coach. He's our distance guy. He really runs everything. I just do the paperwork side of things. Try to help him out that way and anything that he needs. And that driving the bus comes back in handy again. That's right. So driving to meets and things like that. So he really runs everything from his side. So it's kind of set up like college where, you know, I'm the director, but I'm really here to support him and everything that they need, you know, on the cross country side of things. And yeah, no football. I haven't coached football since the 2019, 2020 season was the last time I was the DC that year. And then I knew we were trying to get pregnant and I didn't know when it would happen. And I know me. And if she went into labor on Friday night and there was a quarter left, it's time to wait. We got 1 quarter left, babe. Try to hold him in there. So
I know you're listening right now, Mrs. Allen. He's kidding. He would not have done it.
No, she knows I would have.
You know, clearly you were, you know, I can't imagine you were not somewhat successful as a football coach because of what you built and led there on the track and field side. Was it a hard decision to go track over football? Why not stay with football and move on and become a father of 2 and what have you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, we were fairly successful. You know, and you know, I was fairly successful as a DC. I've called offense, things like that. Won plenty of games. The dream of my life was always to be a head football coach. My original dream was to be a head football coach before I was 30. And I got the head track job when I was 25. And it took me till I was like 28 to realize I had already met my dream or like met my goal. I was like, I am a head coach. I'm just not a football. It's just another sport. And then it's just hard to, you know, I probably would have had to leave to go be a head football coach. I interviewed here, and one of the questions they asked me was basically, you know, if we made you the head football coach, would you step down from being the track coach? And I said, no. And they were like, well, why not? And I was like, well, it's not fair to me for what I've built here and for the kids, for me to just walk away and be like, this sport's more important than that sport. So I'm like, that's just not fair. You know, and they gave the job to somebody else, which is 100% fine. He did a great job, you know, there. But, you know, it was a question that I was asked, and I had to decide in that moment, you know, what I would do. And I just, yeah, just what we built here with this team and everything that's happened, it'd be very, very hard to just give it away just to do the other thing just because. I mean, at this point, that's what I think it would be. It would be just because. just to see if I could still do it, kind of in the back of my head, that competitor and that true love, just like people say with, the real love lives, like that first love is always there in the back of your head a little bit. So you always just wonder, like, could I go back? Could it work? But no, I'm happy with everything we've built here. Sometimes I wonder, and I've been asked questions before, like in some coach of the year interviews and stuff, like, is it Cuthbertson or is it you? Or is it like, could you do it somewhere else? And that's always a question that I always have to ponder. And then I really, really think about it. And I wouldn't say it's me. It's myself and the staff that we've put around. I think that we are really, really good. And I think we could do this somewhere else if we had to, but why would we? There's no real reason to do that. If it takes me going to another school and doing it again to prove that I'm a good coach, then I guess I'll never be able to prove that.
Yeah, I think it's especially in the college football world. That's where I don't watch NFL. I'm a college football guy. I think we've learned that it's not just the head coach. It's not just Nick Saban. And he's great and all that. And we're seeing this year not as great in the past, right? He has to have a staff. The support of the Tuscaloosa community, donors, et cetera, has to be there. And it's not always there, but it's not one person, it's not one location. It is an amalgamation of a lot of things.
Yeah.
You don't just plug Nick into the Tulsa University world and they're automatically national champs in 5 years. No, there's other things that just aren't going on at Tulsa that are happening at Tuscaloosa, Michigan State, LSU, places he's been. So it's a combination of a lot of things for sure. But it takes leadership. Sure. I think with that Nick example is it does take leadership, and I think with the example there at Cuthbertson as well, it does take leadership for it to happen. Cuthbertson wasn't winning this before you. And while I know it wasn't you coaching all those events, so it does take a staff and teachers to support your students, and takes your student athletes, of course. It's a combination, but it takes leadership. Absolutely. So on that same line of thinking there with leadership, we've had this this conversation in the past with a couple of different guests. It's a theory that I have. I'm going to ask it and see what you think. So you were a football coach that took over track and had a lot of success. Do you think a good track, so when I say good, I mean leadership, time management, organization, understanding how to coach, there's different things, how to coach is a skill itself that you can learn and become better. Do you think a really good track coach could take over a football team? And maybe let's use kind of the same scenario here. Didn't play football in high school, maybe casually watches it on TV because it's a little harder not to watch football on TV than it is track, right? Could a good leadership track coach take over a football program and have, I hesitate to say the same success that you've had in the track, because my Lord, it's hard to attain for anybody, but at least have success, going to playoffs, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, I believe so. I think coaches coach, and good coaches find a way to make it work, regardless of the sport. Same type of thing. If I didn't know anything about football and I did all this track stuff and I were to go to football, well, I'm not going to call the offense and the defense, right? I'm going to let you call the offense, and I'm going to hire somebody else to call the defense. And I'm going to get somebody else to do special teams. And I'm going to find some guy that, is a kicking coach. And I'm going to find some guy that played quarterback. And I'm going to hire those people and empower them to do their job to the best of their ability. And then I will find my niche, whatever that might be, whether it be a linebacker or a safety or what a lot of times they say the worst coaches on a football staff is the tight ends coach. So maybe I'll go coach tight ends, because they can be coached by the receiver coach. They can be coached by the offensive line coach. And then I'm there just in case they need me. Right. So, you could do something like that. I think good coaches, no matter what the sport, are just that. They're good coaches, and they're able to lead and adapt and maneuver themselves, through some of that stuff. And leadership is the same regardless what the sport is. I don't think that necessarily matters. Your leadership style is going to come on, and if athletes respect you, they're going to do what you need them to do, and that it's the same it doesn't matter what the sport is. So yes, I believe that would be successful, unless that person is somebody that's a super control freak, even when they're in track, and tries to coach everything by themselves. And then they go to football and they don't know anything and they try to do that. Then no, that wouldn't be successful. But
For some reason, I've always used Jerry Baltus. He's the head coach at Grand Valley State University, highly successful Division II program up there for track and field. But I've always used him as my example of, I think you could take Jerry, and I don't know if he likes hockey or not, but again, I've always used this as the example, and you stick him on a hockey team. But because Jerry knows leadership, because Jerry knows motivation, Jerry knows organization, and you brought up some other good points of like, oh, I bet you Jerry also knows how to not micromanage his assistant coaches and things like that. Go out and get the best coaches and let them coach. I think he'd be a very successful hockey coach. Just my opinion. I think leadership is leadership, organization is organization, motivation is motivation. So before today, though, I don't know that I would have said, yeah, a really good football. Nick Saban, let him coach track and field. He'll be successful. I wouldn't have said that before today. You've definitely changed my my mindset there, my superiority of track and field coaches, if you will. You started to, and I cut you off, but I want to wrap up today. Give us, again, we've talked about it's not you on your own. You're not one man of island here. You have an amazing coaching staff. We've talked about ADs that you've had. So you've had some great support staff. Give us kind of the Cuthbertson shout outs, if you will, who's on your staff, things like that. I'd love to just, give those guys and gals the due that they're due.
Yeah, for sure. We'll start with some of the OGs. I talked about him a little bit. Obviously, Elliot Lightfoot, head coach at Central State. He kind of started this thing with me. Taught me a lot from the beginning. Even though we would get in some arguments, as you've said, like I did not come into this with the whole like track mentality. Like he'd have to slow me down some. But he's the OG. It's crazy. His son is now on the team. He's a sophomore now.
Wow.
And so when we took over together, I think he was like 6 or 7. So it's crazy to watch that happen, but definitely Coach Lightfoot. And then Coach Carla Stamper, the lady who came and said, what the heck do you know about track? And I don't know nothing. So why don't you come help? She did an absolutely amazing job. Didn't have the easiest of times. She was not coaching cross country at the time. Never actually coached cross country. So we had a cross country coach, and then those kids would leave that coach and come to a new coach. And that wasn't always easy for everyone involved. But she did an amazing job. 4x8 state champions our first year, outdoor, and we're all Americans in the 4x mile and some other things that she was able to accomplish. So she did absolutely amazing. And then both of them happened to leave during COVID. And so after COVID, we totally revamped the staff. And, we've had others come through. Coach Brema was here for a few years. He taught science here. And a few others that came through. Obviously, I know I'm missing some people, but I'm trying to rack everybody off my brain all at one time. And then our current staff, most of these guys, everyone except for our distance coach has been here since COVID. So since 2021, which is really our most successful time. 2021, 2022, we swept both indoor and outdoor both years. And then 2023, we swept indoor and only won the girls outdoor. The boys didn't quite pull it off. Wasn't our day that day. But we've won a lot. I think they have 9. I think they all have 9 rings already since they got here in 2021. But, our sprints coach is Matt Russell. He's done an absolutely amazing job with those guys. We just had the 2 commits to UNC on the sprint side. We had a girl she's at App on the sprint side, girl at Queens. Yes, we had a bunch of sprinters last year that are very successful and signed. He's doing a great job. Derek LeMay, he started as our middle distance and hurdles coach. And now he's focusing more on the hurdles. He's been doing a great job. We got a kid at Liberty that was under him that's doing really well up there. Then we have Coach Lou. He jumped at Florida State. He's doing our long and triple jump. His daughter is now a senior for us. She's done very, very well, obviously, in both the long and the triple jump with her dad there. But he's doing great. Last year, we probably had the best triple jump group, definitely in the state, if not close to in the country. I don't know many that had 3 girls over 38. And one was a freshman. So he's done an amazing job. Obviously, I talked about Coach Swift a little bit. She's doing our pole vaults. Coach Wood was doing pole vaults right before she got here. I actually had to do pole vaults. I did coach a state champion in pole vault. I will give myself that from YouTube. Then we had Coach Wood, who's done a great job. And then Coach Swift has come in, and she's just been amazing. We've taken 2 football kids over the past couple of years to go 14-6, having never done it before. So she's done great on the guys' side and with the girls as well. And then we have Coach Hicks. Coach Hicks teaches CTE here, and he's the YouTube master. We're on our way to the state meet last year, and I look over on his phone, and he's watching YouTube throw videos on the way to states. And he's done a great job. Since he's been here, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we've had 6 podium finishes at states in the throws, and our throws have not been very good before that. So he's done a great job, with all those guys. We've got Coach East, who's our assistant head coach, one of my best friends. So he's always there with me. He kind of works wherever we need him, and does a great job there. And then we got Coach Mike Daly. He does our middle distance group. He came on with us last year. And then now we have Coach Mark Villardo, who's taking over cross country and our distance program. And so he's doing a great job with his first year. He ran at West Virginia and was in the 96 and 2000 Olympic trials in the 5K. I think he ran 13:30 something. So yeah, he was pretty good in his right. So now let's see what he can give back. So yeah, it's a great staff. I don't think I missed anyone. If I did and you're watching, I apologize about that. But there's so many people to go through. And then I think the most important person of all is actually Miss Lee Cushing. That is our team mom. There's no way I could do with 2 babies everything that I used to do without Miss Cushing being able to do a lot of the things with parents signing up for the meets to work and the concession stand and getting pizza to the meets and drinks and everything else that we need, that she kind of takes over. And then obviously when my boys were born, she ran the Bring Coach Allen food distribution. So definitely couldn't do anything without Miss Cushing either.
That's awesome. Dustin, as we wrap up today, man, I'm actually really happy I don't do pre-research. This has been fascinating for many, many reasons. But what I want to encourage you, it's something you said. I was thinking about this, and then you kind of said it, about what's the distance coach's name? Matt?
Mark Villardo.
Mark, who ran for West Virginia, right?
Yeah.
So you said, he's a pretty good runner in his own right, and now we're going to see what he can do to give back, right? I would encourage you, because you're not busy enough as the dad of twins and the coach of, call it 300 track athletes, in what little downtime you have. You don't have to overproduce this, but I love that you're the YouTube coach. Some people would take that as a slam, but I take it as like, oh, this guy wasn't going to let anything, no excuses for why I can't coach. So if it's on YouTube, I'm going to watch it. If it's a book, you showed several books. I love that attitude. And, I think we tend to, and I don't know if this happens in other sports, but it certainly does in track and field, because we're very elite driven. So elite athletes, elite coaches, we tend to think all towards them. And we forget that that's, in the 80-20 rule, that's only 20% of our coaches that are coaching 20% of our greatest athletes, right? In reality is, you're in North Carolina. There is someone in Nowheresville, North Carolina. And those are cities in every state, by the way. There's Nowheresville, Alabama, Illinois, New York, you name it, that is starting to coach for the first time, is afraid to coach track and field because they didn't do it. So I'm not supposed to, air quotes, coach it. I can't get to a level 1. I can't get, it's harder and harder to make these type of excuses of getting to coaching education because of online and all that stuff. But I'm afraid of doing that because, I can't show up to a class of 30. I don't know, I don't know anything. I'm fear of judgment, right? I would encourage you and your staff, your team, to give back to the YouTube track coaching community. I mean, it is what you're describing. Like I mentioned, the javelin thrower who became an Olympic gold medalist because of YouTube and things like that. There are kids out there. There are athletes out there today and tomorrow, by the way, in 2030 and 2040 and 2050, those years will come one day, that are going to they're going to go to YouTube and be like, how do I high jump? How do I triple jump? How do I pole vault? I would just encourage you, again, sometimes people let the fear of perfection get in the way. And so it's like, oh, I can never produce and open up your phone, hit record and say, hey, here's like my 3 tips if you're beginning how to pole vault of what I might suggest. That will provide value. That will provide giving back to others.
Yeah.
You've given a ton in your community there in Cuthbertson, and I'm so proud of you and so happy for what you do. But I was just struck by what you have been given through specifically this medium of YouTube. And then when you kind of hit me in the head when you said about the distance coach of like, now we're going to see what he can give back. Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to challenge you, Dustin, to give back for what you've given, man. So I just want to encourage you for that. Just kind of
no, for sure.
Sit on my heart there as we went through that. Man, dude, this has been a lot of fun, man. I am so grateful. Again, I say this every podcast because it's my dead honest truth here. I'm always humbled that you would give me 2 hours of your day. I know how busy you are. And gosh, now I learned how really busy you are for your, teaching and coaching and parenthood and husbandry. It's quite amazing. So thankful and humbled that you'd spend some time with us to go over your journey, man, because it certainly is unique. I'm gonna add this to another unique 250 plus coaches. Well, here's another super unique. If you think you're listening right now and you're like, well, I didn't do track, I can't coach track. Well, we've just wiped that excuse off the book for you, because not only does this guy doing it pretty well and still doing it now. So Dustin, thank you so much, man. So grateful for your openness and authenticity here with your journey. It really, I know it's going to help other people, and just so thankful for what you're doing, and just want to bless that what you're doing to keep doing it, because you are affecting 14 to 18-year-olds lives, man. That you've seen this. You coach 200 plus athletes every year. Not everyone's going to North Carolina on a track scholarship, right? But all of them are going to go on to become moms and dads, business owners, teachers, track coaches, accountants. You almost went your way. And so what you and your staff and what your administration and your support staff there do in Cuthbertson, the positive impact you make on young people it's immeasurable for what it does for society, man. So just so grateful for you and your whole team, and just so thankful for you being here today.
Yeah, of course, man. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come on and kind of go over my story and everything that we've kind of been able to accomplish here. And hopefully, the listeners, somebody might have learned something. And if they ever want to reach out, it's at Cuddy Track on Twitter. You guys can always send me a DM there, or just send me an email or something at dustin.allen@ucps.nc.us. So that would be awesome to hear from any of you guys. If you got questions or any comments or anything like that.
Do you speak at any of the clinics, the North Carolina clinic, anything like that?
No one's ever talked to me about coaching any of that. I am speaking at a clinic on December 16th in South Carolina.
Okay,
put on by Coach CP, who coaches at
yeah. Oh yeah, you're doing that one. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the people that are going to be there. I'm glad he's doing it. There's another great leader, by the way.
He's awesome.
Job out there.
We've got really close during COVID. He gave me a call. We didn't even know who each other were. He just saw some stuff on Twitter.
Yeah.
And we talked for like 4 or 5 hours one day during COVID, just about everything. So yeah, I'm talking on how to build championship culture.
You've done that a little bit. Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. So I love it. Dustin, thank you so much, man. Very grateful for you. Appreciate you very much. And thank you for being here and listening once again. Wasn't this fascinating? This is, I know we're going into season 5 here. So 5 years of putting on this podcast. And I still wake up every day on the interview day, like kind of giddy, like, oh man, who am I going to learn today? What am I going to learn today? And who from? And today didn't disappoint. So I'm so glad you're here to learn from these amazing men and women that we have here on the podcast. Join us next week on the Gill Track and Field Connections podcast, where we uplift and honor coaches from around the world. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.